being currently done in Armenia and Georgia in the field of waste management? The role of the Nordic countries' assistance in this field. How to make the Nordic assistance programs in waste management more and more efficient and useful for our countries.
Overall, we have we have only the collection of waste, municipal waste in the country. Sorting is piloted in a couple of cities with not very big success. Recently, we had introduced partial sorting at source in the capital, in Yerevan, partial in a couple of districts, and the major part of recyclables are collected from municipal dumps by scavengers. We are planning a project to pilot waste source separation in one city, a program financed by Swedish International Development Agency, SIDA. Plus, we'll be assisting the government of Armenia to develop legislation on extended producer responsibility, which we should deliver by 2024 with Swedish support. I don't know.
I know I'm a moderator and I shouldn't jump in, but just one thing to add: there's also growing interest in biological waste and what to do with biological waste. This is coming from the food security perspective and somewhat from the energy security perspective.
I want to highlight a very important topic which we are working now. This is regional waste management practice, a replication from Swedish experience. We have a very experienced international group from Sweden who is helping us to one of our region. We decided that in addition to municipal waste management plan preparations, which again SIDA was supporting it broadly, we have prepared for 22 municipalities municipal waste management plan according to EU standards, but we are now we have shifted to regional waste management practice in Kakheti region, and we have great success, cooperation of 8 municipalities, etc. Another very important topic on which SIDA is very active here is circular economy. We have already conducted 8 international conferences on circular economy, and the government of Georgia, particularly to support SIDA-funded project, for circular economy, created intergovernmental board to support transition to circularity in Georgia. And I want to pass special thanks to our long-standing partners, to government of Sweden, to the ambassador, to SIDA director.
Interesting idea was brought up by our Swedish colleagues from the Lund University last year about the MBA Solutions course, and I was very happy to see that it was an interesting academic effort to improve knowledge and exchange in between our countries and to bring Swedish experience in waste management and MBA solutions to the larger communities. I'm one of the alumni of this program, and I would recommend everybody who is working with youth organizations, civil society, government, people who are responsible for waste management, to recommend this course for them. Another thing that we are doing in collaboration with municipalities is our EU-funded project on BSB Black Sea Cooperation 1138 called Project, Anti-Littering Project. And there, with municipalities of Dirijan and Vanadzor, we have managed to promote the separate waste management practices, and we have provided the municipalities with the plastic bins collection points, and they are now managing themselves the plastic collection in those both cities. Government has to improve the regulation and make it a mandatory thing to enshrine waste management, sustainable waste management principles. It has to be formulated in a very strict law, and this law has to work. We have legislation, but legislation is just a piece of paper until you make it work with, I don't know, whether it is penalties or whether it is obligations of producers.
People are actually quite concerned and quite ready to become more responsible with their waste. But the thing they're lacking is the lack of infrastructure. So here where I see personally kind of the perspective to grow and maybe assistance from Nordic partners more is the development of infrastructure, and which is more like one of the most essential points is training of the staff of the municipal services and all the waste management staff who is involved in the collection, basically from the street, right? From like the street sweepers till the top management of waste management companies in the country. Through our work during the pilot project with UNDP, we worked with municipal operators in Tbilisi and Batumi, and like on all levels, we saw lack of knowledge.
We have targeted about 1 million people, and I can say that it's really tangible. International days for World Cleanup Days, for Earth Days, and so we have environmental calendars for Environment Day, World Water Day. So we can see in cleanup action, so many people are involved there, starting from the government, from regional governments, self-government bodies, civil society organizations. So they're very much involved, and communities also. Also, we have conducted, as Maria mentioned, so thousands of meetings in the region, and municipalities with community groups and NGOs and the self-government bodies. I will say that this the awareness is really raised, and there is a demand from population to start sorting and separation of waste and to start recycling. We have invented that the contest clean region, so we cannot imagine how many people, the whole country is participating in it. We have conducted for the 6th time this year, and we are preparing for the 7th one. So there are 9 nominations in this competition. So this is clean region, clean municipality, clean village, clean city, clean borough, a beautiful street, beautiful balcony, clean yard of the organization, and of course blue stream. So blue stream means this. This is the campaign for cleaning up the river beds from plastic. It's also very important. And so starting from the state representatives to the civil society organizations, so everybody are involved there, just individuals also. We have started a collaboration with, as I have mentioned, with many business sector organizations, and of course, so also the free plastic zones we established, envisaged to establish free plastic zones in the country, mostly in touristic areas.
There are actually also 8 settlements that are consolidated into 2 communities in Armenia that are fully implementing waste sorting at source. We also have a program that is implemented with the support of the Japanese government, where Armavir city within this year is going to fully start waste sorting in the city. There are also over 40 recycling facilities in Armenia that not necessarily publish all the data, how much they recycle, but there is a lot of progress within the last few years. Our organization itself, we work with over 600 all-level organizations, starting from the ministries up to all educational institutions, where waste is also being separated at source and is directly directed towards recycling facilities across the country. There are also in Armenia several upcycling centers that produce different types of products, including recycled paper and other materials that they recycle in the facilities that are built. We also have green councils in some communities that are helping the local self-government bodies to make green decisions, and also helping them to integrate green solutions into their strategic development plans.
I would like to ask primarily our Nordic participants to share briefly, about the Nordic waste management achievements. And especially, I want to ask your opinions about what is applicable for the other countries and what is not?
I think Georgia has to be very clever in the coming even decades, because you have to use your own resources in the best way. We, the Swedes, and I suppose the Norwegians, we have a tendency sometimes to propose what we did ourselves. And we are kind of influenced by our experiences. And we may try, I hope we are trying, all of us, but sometimes I doubt, to understand the conditions of the countries where we are working. But it's not easy. What can you learn from us? Well, you can learn that we try to get rid of landfills. And we have done it very successfully, but at a high cost. We have introduced incineration. Incineration in a country like Sweden works very well, I would say. One of the reasons is that we have central heating, more or less everywhere, so we can use the heat. If you can't use the heat, I would say forget about incineration. The efficiency of making power is too low, and the costs are still, for us, quite high. One of the other, maybe more important things is about how to deal with the recyclables in the household waste. That is what you are standing in front of now. We quickly realized that we will not get very good systems running if we couldn't find new sources of financing. So that's when we introduced the extended producer responsibility to get the financing which doesn't come in through municipal taxes. Now, Georgia, I know, and I heard Armenia is also planning to work with this. You have to put up good rules and then work with industry. It will be too difficult for all the municipalities in this country.
One of the lessons learned, looking at it from a sort of overall national perspective, is that we have had the extended producer responsibility since the middle of the 90s. And that has meant a lot when it comes to collection of especially packaging, but also electric and electronic waste, and of course, a whole lot of other waste streams like tires, cars, etc. At the same time, there has been, from the beginning of when the EPR was introduced, there has been a conflict of interest between the producers and the EPR actors and the municipalities, because they are discussing what kind of cost should be distributed to through the municipalities and what we are paying as inhabitants and what should be covered by the EPR system. But having said that, I think that has been a major sort of part of the system in terms of how much we are collecting and how much we are recycling, especially for all the EPR waste streams. So what I think could be a lesson learned is that when you have sort of the opportunity of starting the EPR systems, if there are ways of establishing collaboration, sort of how to meet, how to discuss, what to learn from each other, how to have interactions. So to establish meeting places to discuss what you actually have in common and how you can learn from each other. So, and in particularly, I think the question of designing of packaging, designing of products, how can the designers learn from the waste industry, from those who are actually doing the collection and recycling of the waste? Because the key factor is that we are designing the products, we are designing the packaging to make it sort of feasible for recycling. And I think also one interesting thing at the moment that could be a lesson learned from the Scandinavian countries is the harmonized labeling system. The interesting thing about this labeling system is that it covers both the waste sector. It has been introduced more and more on waste bins and the recycling stations, etc., but also used by the producers. So like a symbol on the packaging, there is a color code. And this is now also a discussion in the EU, as I think you are aware of. And they are also looking, what if this Scandinavian system could also be the basis for a European system? Lastly, I think the question of how much you are actually able to recycle, that's a lesson learned from Norway. Because in Norway, we established a collection system very early, but at the same time, we should have focused more on the real recycling, not only like we are collecting and we are used it for something good, but we want to have closed loops. We want to have more to use the recycled materials in the building construction sector, for instance.
To add something about the EPR, I think it's a great motivation for the producers when they know that they need to kind of take it back to the cycle and it will be their cost. It's a great motivation for them to design it in a way that it's easier to recycle. Like, for instance, for plastics, we have this sandwich solutions with different kind of plastics put together, and it's practically impossible to recycle it because of that. Another thing that I want to add is the need of information to the audience or to the public, for people to be motivated to source sort. It's very important to share information and to share correct information, because if the population are informed that they should sort it in a certain way, and then it will be recycled, and then afterwards it gets known to them that it wasn't really recycled after all, and that's very demotivating.
I represent Georgia Cleaners Guild. Sadagi is shorter name. It means a working day. We are trying to solve the problem by the people. So Thomas mentioned that we do not have many resources, and this is our own resources that we are putting in. So we are funding this organization ourselves. Firstly, we want to learn not to litter. And if you don't stop littering the streets and forests and valleys and rivers, you will never clean it up. And the second one is to clean up what we can. And these cleanups are done by us, the members, but also by many volunteers and local communities, schools, or just local people. We try to, everywhere we go, we connect to the local people and try to do things with them so that they don't continue not littering. Our key direction is really to unite people in cleaning up our own country.
The biogas is a rather expensive thing to do, but we still have composting, and we can do composting in various ways, and that doesn't have to be very expensive. Now we should just make them do it in a as good as possible way. And we should also maybe try to think about, would it be possible to separate it? There are so many advantages if you separate food waste from the other household waste. In a warm country, how often do you have to collect for waste? Well, the food waste very often, the other waste less often. So you can optimize the system a lot if you are separating this, and you can get valuable material from it.
The main problem in this talk, I see that we don't have the recycle in the factory or whatever you call it. So, okay, we will pick all this garbage up, we will do, and where to take them. So this is the huge issue, a huge problem in Georgia is, of course, the waste itself on the resorts, on the rivers, on the beaches, in the woods, and everywhere. It's a horrible picture. So I don't see any policy from the government. I don't see that the community, the population are bothered from this problem. And personally, I represent the Georgian Mountain Business Association. So, and now we started like waste awareness, like talk to businesses how they need to manage their waste. And we really need to intensify talking about this problem, and then probably the government will do anything, at least, because it's really terrifying what's currently happening in Georgia. It's not normal.
Our next questions would be completely devoted to the role of grassroots organizations and other non-governmental organizations.
In the Armenian case that I am aware of, there are commitments on the part of the government to make changes, because Armenia also has an agreement with the EU, the SEPA agreement, which aligns in many ways Armenia's legislation, specifically on waste managers as well, with EU legislation. Government can learn a lot from grassroots initiatives, right? So if I could put my colleague Narine Avetyan, who I hope she's still with us, on the spot and ask, I know that the Armenian government is doing lots of things on legislative improvements in waste management, but in your years of working with in this sector, have you learned anything from grassroots initiatives? Have you engaged with civil society?
Yes, of course. Just I can say, for example, just for the development of some regulations, development of the strategy, and development of the draft laws, commitment to the waste management laws. And of course, always we discuss with our colleagues from the civil society. And of course, we use the recommendations which we get from them. And even we have developed many regulations with our colleagues from civil societies and NGOs and other academic institutions. We have many examples for that, and which is very useful for the development of the policy of waste management.
We have started finding little ambassadors in the communities and who wish that recycling become true in Armenia. And we started to work with them. We started to collect recycling materials on the street. So we were doing this each weekend on the street in different parts of the city and in the different part of the regions of Armenia. And we were organizing also trips to the to see which kind of facility do they have, and we were recording them and putting on social media. There was no bridge between society and those factories. Those factories were taking all recycling materials from the landfills. They were buying from there because there were people who were like sorting them from the trash and selling those to the factory. So we created bridge between society and between those factories, and that's why it succeeds. And we have built the trust. People believe that if they are giving to us the sorted recycling materials, that is going to the factory. All the staff who is working with waste, they should be trained all the time. They should learn what they do and why they do. We have seen in our experience that teaching from the school is very important, as we have seen that kids can have influence in their parents.
The role of civil society in innovation is absolutely essential, because the kinds of stuff civil society and grassroots organizations can experiment with, governments most likely will never be able to experiment or try or kind of create that laboratory of new ideas and new solutions. On the other hand, I don't think, and my Nordic colleagues would correct me, any of the Nordic countries had grassroots initiatives developing their waste management system. It was mostly a government institutional reform or change or introductions.
Yes, government is engaged. I see at various levels there have been good initiatives, but I believe in bottoms up in many ways. God give us very good governments everywhere, but nothing will happen if people do not want to cause it. So I will concentrate on people and making it ourselves as much as we can.
So it was youth organization, environmental NGOs, sort of pushing forward that we cannot continue just to throw away garbage and to throw away them in the landfills. So it was definitely sort of pushing energy from the NGO sector. And then it was, we have a sort of, when we tell this story in Norway, there was one politician, his name was Torbjørn Berntsen. He came from the Labour Party, and he's sort of the founding father of, actually, in principle, a lot of the things we still do, the origin was this politician. He was the Minister for Environment at that time, and he just and he said to the industry that if you don't do anything, I will sort of enforce it upon you. And that was the starting of the EPR system, and that was also the start of mandatory sorting for a lot of fractions at municipal level. So I think actually you need the sort of interaction between the NGO sector and the politicians. I think that's very important. And I also think to engage the journalists, the media, to sort of focus on what are we doing today that is actually not acceptable.
Very little may happen if you don't have a civil society which is interested, and people are busy, so it is the organizations that have to be there. And they played a very big role, and in many cases, they're connected to waste. When it comes to plastic bottles and so on, we have a deposit refund system. We wouldn't have had that if people, and with people I mean the NGOs, started to send a lot of bottles to our minister, and been talking about this all the time and etc. So yeah, we need pressure. The fact was every 50% of the post to the minister for a period was cans and bottles. And they had to be registered and etc.
Feel free to use our platform for sharing your views, ideas, proposals, criticisms. We would be happy to assist in this very noble case of making our region cleaner. Again, thank you very much, and I wish you all the best in your endeavors.
Thank you very much, Alexander, for also leading all of this initiative, organizing it.